I'm Scott L. Miller. This is my life living in Leon, Nicaragua. It is Thursday night, and that means it is time for the Nicaragua Live. So, thanks everyone for joining us. We're getting the word out there. It's a little bit harder this week as I am not a member of the Expats group that I normally send the announcement out to get the word out. So that makes it a little bit harder to let people know what's happening. So sorry for people who don't have easy access to that anymore. I'm working on letting people know and getting the word out, and we'll see if we can get someone to post it over there on my behalf. Not sure how we're going to get that done. Anyway, we're hoping you guys can join us over here in just a minute. Giving you a minute to get on as we get things up and running. How is everyone doing this week? Luke is already here. Hola, y'all. Jan says, I'll do it. Hello, I posted it. Oh, you posted it before I even sent it for you to post. Thanks, Janet. We'll get the word out there one way or another. It's been a very quiet day, not having the expat group to talk in all day. Actually, I've been in meetings like all day. I am really interested. I'm going to wait a little bit. Oh, Beverly is here again. Hey, Beverly, glad to have you here. Oh, I'm going to move my microphone is working, but a little bit far away. Now I can be all like, welcome to the show. Yeah, so Colin Unger is here. Hola. So this is our second time using the vertical. So let me explain that. I do the show widescreen. It's for people on TV, basically. People on TV? People using TV, people watching on TV. I'm on TV. Oh, hey, Tony, 38 days till you're there. Wow, it's getting close, just over a month. We tried this last night. This has just appeared. There's a brand new Google feature, YouTube feature. So I know nothing about how it's working, but it feels like it's beneficial. And logically it should be. They now broadcast our regular show, which you guys see. Plus, for the people who are on their cell phones, there's now a vertical live version that you can watch. So if you're somewhere and you're on a cell phone and you want to be on the exact same show, it's the same show, but vertical. So I have to kind of sit in the middle and be right here to not be weird. If I move too much, then I'm not in the vertical. So I'm trying to make it both fit. But it's a neat thing that they're doing. I like that they offer this because there are more and more people who like doing lives vertical or just on their phone and like laying in bed and probably not this early, but laying in bed and like, oh, I could really use some way to fall asleep. I've had insomnia. Wait a minute, Scott's live. That'll put anyone to sleep. So it's perfect for you guys. Janet's in class. Luke says, did you plan that Sunday trip to the beach for sand and beer yet? No. Although Marcella just sent me a thing for Sunday morning, not to the beach, but to a near beach pool to go film a new thing that just opened up in Sutiaba. So kind of. Robin Hindal, hola, back in Nicaragua. So excited to be here. Welcome back. Glad you're here. EPE Live. Hey, Scott. Peter Val from Messiah saying presente. All right. We got a good number of people on in our first few minutes. The whole not being on the not being on the group is not creating a big problem. Someone just put on, thanks for the terrible tip. Oh, but where did it go? I love when I get like unhappy messages and I go to see where they are, respond to them, and then they don't show up. So someone just sent a note and said, thanks for the horrible tip on something. But I never know what the topic is when those things come in on the phone. Either YouTube is way behind on updating, or they said something else that was nasty enough that they got ban-hammered by YouTube, because I can't find their message now. All right, I'm going to see if I can find it on here. It was E. Damon. I said, oh. It wasn't a nasty remark. It was, he said, I'm flying for, yes. E. Damon said, this is in reference to the FAA things. Shit, I'm flying to Nicaragua tomorrow from Miami. Hopefully won't get hijacked or shot down. Dang it, and I'm already terrified of flying in an aluminum tube full of jet fuel. I said, just remember the recent flight when all the lady had terrible diarrhea and it got all over the plane. That will keep your mind off of it. He said, thanks for the horrible tip. You're so welcome. Reading this live on the live show now. Yes. Oh. Eat Group. Hey, Scott, how you doing? I'm doing all right. Doing all right. Ambiente 14. Hey, Scott, or 14, we're here in Nicaragua. Hey, Scott, do citizens of El Salvador need to do border runs in Nicaragua? So a citizen of El Salvador in Nicaragua doesn't have to do a border run per se. I honestly don't know exactly how this works. I don't know how many days you get. I don't know what you have to do. It's complicated, and almost nobody does it. Most people end up looking to do it as some kind of permanent thing, and then they just have like a different paperwork. So I'm really unsure how it happens for Salvadorans coming here. I don't know how it works for Nicaraguans going to Salvador. I know that it's a border-free crossing, so you can do all kinds of things, and it's very open, and you can find jobs and all kinds of stuff, and you can even apply for local job. Like, there's a lot, but there are limits. But they're very different, and they're not in any way connected to the foreign visa limits and stuff. So I honestly don't know. But I do know you can get to El Salvador very easily. So if you're anywhere near the border, just going whoop whoop would be nothing. It's not a border run per se, but it's a leaving and coming back thing. But since they don't necessarily stamp your paperwork when you do it, I don't know how that works. Like, they don't necessarily know how long you've been here. They only know how long you've been in the... I don't know what they do. It says, just finished watching your live as to why you left WhatsApp. Sorry to see you go. I appreciate that. I think overall, I talked to more people about it today. And of course, Janet's like, yep, there's... Or no, it wasn't Janet, but I got told that there's already, like, toxic people in there being, like, pissed off and, like, how I owed them to be in the group and stuff. And I'm like... Yeah, I'm glad I'm, one, not there to put up with that. And two, I'm glad that I get to just report it to Janet, the moderator, and be like, hey, there's people being harassing. I'm not even in the group and they're trying to harass me. Like, let the mods go deal with that. Not my thing. That's part of it. Is just being a mod puts so much more pressure. If I was only a member of the group, I can, like, step away and be like, I don't want to read this. Or I'm going to report this person and let moderators duke it out over it or yell at them or whatever. But as the moderator, it's so, like, you're caught up in it so much that I hate situations where the person who is participating heavily, which I'm not the only one, but one of, is also the moderator. It really should be separate. In communities I know that had really good moderation, like a Spiceworks back when it was good, people like Nick and Sean who were really, really good at moderation. They weren't experts in the field that the subject matter was. They knew enough to understand, like, what was being posted, but in no way were they the ones who were like, oh, I got the answer to this, or I have, like, a whole bunch of input on it. Once in a while, of course they could, but in general, they didn't have a lot. So they weren't in some spot where they're like, that's my career. I want to jump in and I want to answer things. It was a professional forum, and for Nick, he was just a professional social media, and for Sean, he came from EA. He was a moderator for video games, right? So they're young, they were technical, they were able to, banter with the engineers, but they weren't like, oh, in my engineering days, we didn't do it like that, and you whippersnappers or anything like that. It wasn't like that, or they didn't have like, oh, at places I've worked, we did it this way. They were just like, oh, I've heard something about this. This seems interesting. Like, oh, wait, you're being mean, right? Like, they were apart from it. So they were able to take this very different moderator's approach. Whereas when you're a subject matter consultant, sort of, and the moderator, then it's easy to have this problem where if someone is getting belligerent and has an opposing view on something or doesn't believe you, if you moderate them, they're like, you're moderating me not because I was mean, not because I broke a rule. You're moderating me because you don't like the thing that I did. Now, that isn't something that really happened, but every time I did have to moderate, it's something I had to consider, right? How is this going to be perceived given that I have skin in the game, right? As opposed to in Spiceworks, Nick and Sean didn't have skin in the game, so their moderation was just naturally seen as much more neutral, regardless of whether it was actually that much more neutral. Gary is here. Hello, Scott in chat. KL7RRC. Hola, Scott from Western Washington. Larry's on. It brings tears to my eyes to be VIP member. Couldn't be prouder. My father, Thomas Miller, is here. He says, howdy. My father this week uncovered, I don't know when he actually uncovered it. I don't know who uncovered this. I'm just going to pretend it was him in this week. A story of his great-great-grandfather, my great-great-great-grandfather, my kid's great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, Daniel Miller, who in 1923 developed the Miller ever-bearing strawberry, and he found a story written by my great-great-great-uncle, Levi, who telling the story of his father, Daniel, about these strawberries. And I managed to find an actual brochure from a farm in 1925 selling my family's strawberries in I want to say Dalton, Ohio, something like that. That was a funny thing this week. Wait, Dad, why are you on? You have places to be, don't you? Beverly Evans says, are immigration facilitators a thing? My timeline just got decreased by about 10 months. I'm eligible for a retirement incentive from my employer. If I don't take it, my program may be cut off anyway. All right, I'll be right back to that. Dale says, or something. I'm not sure what that I'm just going to imagine that's some kind of wink, like sideways wink. And graduate Jamal just says, good evening from San Marcos, Carazo. So Beverly, so immigration isn't something under normal circumstances that you need to facilitate here in Nicaragua. It's one of the great things about Nicaragua, one of many things like that we like here, but one of the things that makes it so attractive to expats is that you don't need to really be doing anything. Now, you can take the Luke approach and have all of your paperwork ready, get here, have all of your ducks in a row, and be like, I'm doing this, womp, and he made it through in a few weeks. Like, it was so fast, the fastest of anyone I know, getting residency. Now, he's going for retirement residency, or one of the retirement Excuse me, I just ate udon noodles with salmon from Sushi Ito in Managua. It's delicious. But I ate it really fast so I could get on the live stream, and now I'm hiccuping. So my apologies. So you can do that. And there can be benefits to that, right? You want to live in a remote area. You want to just have the comfort of knowing you have your paperwork done and it's not hanging over your head for some indefinite time in the future. That's all fine. I think, and maybe Luke will pop in and... is it like this? Is it one of those? How do you do that thing? I'm too old. No, it might be a salute. I don't know if I can repeat it. It's a wave, head and an arm. Castle Club. Castle Club is my father's movie night club at home, canceled because of terrible weather. That is your punishment for living not in Nicaragua, where nothing ever gets canceled for terrible weather because it's always beautiful in Nicaragua. Immigration, pensionado, and rentistas have lost all their perks. Okay, I was about to say maybe Luke will pop in and give his opinion, and there it is. There's nothing wrong with getting the pensionado or rentista visas, the residencies, right? What people think of generally when they're saying residency, that's normally what they're referring to. There's nothing wrong with getting them. Nothing wrong with wanting them. Nothing. It's fine, right? But almost certainly, if you want it, it's because you're imagining there's something tied to it that there isn't. There's essentially no benefit. There's not a tax benefit. There's not a real paperwork benefit. There are, under very specific circumstances, situations, mostly depending on where you live in the country, where it can be slightly more convenient. And there are other situations, mostly based around some amount of personal travel and things like that, or work abroad that you may do in person, that would make them extremely anti-beneficial, unbeneficial. Make the alternative process, the eternal tourist, as we call it, the beneficial process. So that is an important balance to understand that of the people we know, and this is a very rough number, and I only know so many, but I know more than most, right? I'm definitely in the upper, probably 10% of people who know a lot of expats, right? Which is not a, out of every 10 people, I would be that one person who knows a few more. Like, that's not a huge stretch, right? This isn't a big flex. But as someone who knows a high number of expats, speaks to a lot, and especially speaks to them about being expats, what we find, and have found forever, this is not new. So with Luke's revelations, this will probably become even more true. And what we find is something like 70 to 80% of the expats we manage to know about, especially those that know what they're doing, opt not to get residency. It just doesn't work for them. Or they only opt to get it when required, meaning they avoided it as long as possible. At some point, the government contacted them and said, do you want to stay? You got to get residency. They go, I do want to stay. I'll get residency. But they're not doing residency voluntarily. I mean, they are, but they're not doing it out of a desire to get residency. They're doing it because they just want to stay, and their set of circumstance led to it being a requirement for them. And so it's relatively rare that you meet someone who really wanted residency. And when you do find someone who just went out and was like, I want to get residency, once they find out how everything works, a reasonable number of people are like, yeah, I wouldn't do it again. I wouldn't have done it. Or like Luke, I did it before when it was better and now it's worse, so I wouldn't do it now. It's all stuff like that. So I would say of people who've really evaluated it, I would say 80 to 90% would tell you that for them, the eternal tourist process was better. Now, I have my residency. So I'm in a smaller group, and I did it intentionally. I did it without being pressured at that time. But, I did get a bit of, pressure's coming. But, not yet. But, just a heads up, you should think about this, right? But we wanted to get the long-term permanent investor residency. And so, to some degree, we didn't rush. We weren't like, oh, we got to get this right away. No, we're like, we'll work on it. We'll move forward, but we're not racing. And it takes a while to do an investor one. Like, there's a lot of steps to it, a lot of extra steps. So what you could do in a few weeks with one of the retirement ones, you really can't do with investor, right? I don't think it's physically possible. Like, if you were like all gung ho, this is just an attempt to see how fast you could get one. I bet there's no way to do it in under 6 months with the investor, just due to the number of requirements that have to be done. But that doesn't cause a problem because the government knows it takes a while. And they're just like, okay, here's where you are in the process. All good. Everything's moving forward as it should. That's all good and everything. So it's really not this big deal, but it's a little bit different. Graduate gemologist. Hey, distant cousin Scott. My mother is from the Miller family line. Great minds think alike. Oh, that's awesome. What part of the world is your Miller line from? Dale says, no, just a wave. Don't use it here again in order to avoid confusion. Luke says, pension and rentista no longer have household good shipment tax exemptions or the $50,000 home improvement tax exemption. Shipping a vehicle is a lost deal. I think you can still do it, but it was never a good deal. It was just like, this is a terrible deal. We're going to give you a little bit off, so it's just a bad deal. I just don't have to do border runs, but do reapply annually. Yeah, so for those who are wondering, when doing a retirement, rentista, or pensionado visa, you have to renew annually and reprint your cedula every 6 months, which is like a check-in. They have to know where you are. That's why they do it. They don't do it because they just love printing plastic chips. For those who do the eternal tourist, you simply have to do a border run every 6 months. The difference is, no matter what you do, you have to do the 6 month easier thing with the residency. But if you're traveling or anything like that, you skip the border run with the border run system. And so for people like me, even though I was here for many years, I never had to do border runs because my work and lifestyle took me regularly out of the country for short periods of time, 2 weeks here, 3 weeks there, 1 week here. And every time acts on paper like you did a border run, even though I didn't do a border run, right? But it's functionally a border run. And so by doing that, by just living my life and working my job, and I don't know if we ever did a vacation. I mean, we did. We went to Disney World one time at the end. No, I think we were already residents by then, so that doesn't even count. We went to see family for Christmas one time, but almost everything else was either a paperwork run or just going to work, right? And so that was, maybe we're an extreme example, but I know people who travel way more than us. So quite a few people. I have a friend who's been here for years, and he's never had to even do an extension because his job sends him within the 90-day window always, almost always within 40 days. He gets sent somewhere for work, and so he's just always traveling. It never comes up. He just does mini vacations in Nicaragua in between his job stints. Ambiente 14, Scott, can we do some map work this stream? Can you show what you know of Chinandega, different barrios and price ranges? Yeah, happily. My Chinandega knowledge isn't the best, but I'll do what little bit I can. Beverly Evans says, "Is there someone who can help me settle or help with our tours and a brief orientation?" That makes a lot more sense. From a paperwork standpoint, you just have to show up. You're good for the first 90 days, and you don't have to leave the country for the next 90. It's just you have to, if you've settled in somewhere, you can generally go to the local Migracion office to do paperwork there, or you can go to Managua, which is very much like having the option of going to the post office or stabbing yourself in the gut with a dull spoon. But the choice is yours. Beverly, send me an email. And maybe you did. I do know that there's 1 or 2 emails waiting for me. I've had a very busy day. I literally got on the phone with work, and then hung up and got on this after eating those udon noodles. So I do know someone is waiting for information on how to get on the private chat. So I don't know who that is because busy, sorry. And but I do know people need me. Graduate gemologist says Germany. So yeah, mine's Bern, Switzerland. So right on the border there. We have a little bit of South German and quite a bit of Alsatian, which was Germany at the time, but is France now. But our Miller name actually comes from Bern itself. Luke says, residents, no tourist visa cost when coming in, but a $10 exit fee when leaving. Yeah, it's 6 of one, half dozen of another, basically. Always a little bit. So it's just come up quite a bit that it's a tough call, really, on getting the residency, because and I think it's kind of designed that way, that they want to make it very much of a, when it's right, it's right. When it's not, it's not, and that's cool. I'm not 100% clear on some of the decision making around it. I'm sure there's some tuning that happens, like they felt too many people were going for residency, so they tweaked down the benefits a little bit, or I'm not really sure, right? It seems like they would want to tweak up the residency slightly, but that's not necessarily the case, right? If things are going well and the economy is, increasing residents may not be that big of a priority, and they may be anticipating the flood of people coming out of the US and Canada right now. I don't know that they have better view into that than we do. Maybe they're just guessing, but they may be attempting to temper the desires of people moving in to jump straight into residency, because it does come with a high overhead cost for the country, right? They have, when you're doing residency, there's a number of people involved in filing that paperwork. There's a number of police officers who are involved in doing your Interpol paperwork, or filing your actual cedula and all that kind of stuff. It's mostly done through the police office. Sorry, I have something on my eyelashes that is driving me crazy. A loose eyelash, I think. And they may be really looking to discourage using those resources if they're looking at the potential of a relatively large number compared to previously, of foreigners looking to move into the country, possibly quite quickly, like all at once, which is for a small country a lot to absorb potentially, but they don't necessarily want to turn them away, so they want to maybe encourage people, and I'm really just guessing. My YouTube in the background just brought up some Botox cosmetic thing, and you're like, why would anyone pay to look? They do a before and after, and you're like, oh, she looks way better. Oh, wait, I have them backwards. No, it looks terrible. Why did they do that to her? And it's like the doctor who works at the clinic, and you're like, what? This is the example of why you don't do that, because it didn't turn out well. And it wasn't like botched. It was just, it's not a good procedure. Anyway, yeah, so we want to look at Chinandega here in a minute for sure. But yeah, I think they're just discouraging that process a little bit, or something of that nature, to hold on. I've got, you guys know I work a little bit. Someone keeps sending in information that doesn't mean anything to me, but I'm gonna look it up just in case. Just in case. I love when people are snarky but stupid. This guy's like, I need to visit tomorrow to do something, and we're like, okay, we don't know where you're visiting, so can you give us, you know, the address and stuff? And all he sent, we're like, we need your company and the ID of your account. And he won't send the ID of the account. And so he's sending in, he doesn't have an account with us according to the name he gave us, and he won't send in an ID. I'm like, I can't help you. Like, we just route this to different people. So if you give us stuff that doesn't exist, I have nowhere to send it. So yeah, that's fun. Anyway, let's see. Let's bring up Chinandega and see what we can find. Patinka says, I also like the map tours that Scott does. Chinandega is a great suggestion. All right. Luke says, I think the continual questions of what is the least amount of money I need to retire with residency probably spook them. That may be. Yeah, that's definitely true. I assume he means the government, that they're just constantly being asked, can I live there with less than $1,000? And they're like, less than $1,000? Where are you coming from? What's going on? Manuel says, hi, everybody from Granada. Made it from Los Chiques, Costa Rica. Interesting border crossing at Tobias with my car. Oh, you want to cross Tobias? Wow. Vince says hi. Manuel, when are you making it up here to the warm west? We're actually not that warm. What's our temperature right now? My father will be interested. It is currently... This says 29 degrees. I do not believe it is 29 degrees. I was out there. It is not at all. That would be 84. No way. It's like I was out in the sun, not much sun, diffuse sun, at 4 o'clock, so 3 hours ago. And at that point, I felt it was about 79. And we're supposed to be heading down to a low tonight of 21, which is quite nice. From the way it feels outside now, I'm guessing we might even go below that. This is seriously cold down here for us. Brent says, Luke, do you have to qualify your financials on your annual renewal? EPE Life says, hey, guys and gals, please like the video to improve the algorithm. Yes, please do. Thank you. Thanks for reminding us. Luke says, yep, and since my funds are federal and state, getting docs apostilled is a pain. Electing to get the 3 months bank statements notarized and state apostilled next month on a trip back. Luke says, along with an updated local police background and a new health certificate. Thanks, Luke. Manuel will be here tomorrow in Leon. I bet you will be very thankful to be out of Granada. No, just kidding. It's a nice place to visit, but I used to live there, and it is not my favorite to live. It's very nice to visit. It's I enjoy getting to go there, but it is you're very much a tourist, right? All the time. Like, it just is how it is, and it's kind of like, not. Tim says it's currently 69 with a cool breeze in Esteli. I wonder what Tim, what's it supposed to go down to tonight up there? 69 is nice. That weather I can handle. I need to... You guys love this. I gotta make a quick MX record change while we're talking. All right. That is done. That is good. Let's bring up a map. A map. A map. We'll look right at a map. Brian is here, but in the car. My business partner is like, oh, sorry, didn't mean to make you work on the live stream. I'm like, it's okay. I got skills. Brent says, so it is basically like starting over, not really renewing. I guess not really starting over since they've approved you once. It's definitely true that it's way easier once you've done it. There's no question there, but it's kind of halfway to starting over. I don't think there's there isn't the long wait. There isn't there's a lot that you don't have to do. So it's not terrible, but it is a surprising amount of work that you have to do annually for that, plus every 6 months getting the reprint, which is not horrible by any stretch, but it's not nothing. But that stuff that he's talking about, I'm really surprised, honestly, how many people that do that process act like we're crazy for preferring. Now, remember, I'm a resident, so I'm in this boat. We've made the switch, but how many people are like, residency is so much better, the border run is so horrible, and then they talk about, then they completely gloss over the annual renew. They only focus on the every 6 months cedula, which is pretty trivial, right? I just did mine because I do have to do that. I don't have to do the renewal like Luke does. I do have to do the cedula, and so I've done my cedula I think 3 times now, and it takes, a solid 15 minutes, right? But locally, I don't have to drive anywhere. So that's pretty minor. But the stuff he's talking about is so onerous that he's actually doing the equivalent of 1 or more border runs because he has to fly back somewhere to get the paperwork. Like, if you look at how much effort it takes me to do a border run back when I would do them, or if I just did one for fun right now, compared to going back and doing that paperwork for residency, holy cow, the border run is so much less work. Even if you did 4 of them, it would be so much less work. Now, the people who say that doing a border run every 90 days is easier than doing the border run every 180 because the extensions added up just make it worth it to do the border run, I find that hard to believe, but plausible, way more plausible. Brent says, still not clear on whether or not the temporary leads to permanent at some point. It does not. The big one that I have is not led to by doing the others. Your annual, to the best of my knowledge, never stops. I don't know of any process to change that. Greta Tamal just says the temperature always seems to be pretty nice in San Marcos, Carazo. The humidity is relatively low. It does not seem to get too hot or too cold. Well, it definitely doesn't get too cold. You're safe there. Too hot will happen at times, but it's pretty pleasant overall. I love that area, Carazo. The Carasango Highlands is pretty fantastic. Michael Maroney, not to mention cheaper. I think he means the residency, right? Doing 2 border runs is nothing compared to doing flights to another country. Yeah. All right. So we're going to do a map. I promised maps. Let me set this up. There it is. He says, yes, the border run. John Blair. Hey, Scott, what would you guess to be the average Nicaraguan middle class income? Okay, good question. So let's give kind of a, well, so let's talk about what that means. Average middle class income is a difficult number because the average Nicaraguan isn't middle class, and the average middle class Nicaraguan. So we're taking a subset. We're taking, okay, so the people who own Flor de Caña are not being considered, and the people who are not middle class yet are not being considered. We're only taking this group and then trying to find the middle of it, as I understand it. That's a hard number to do. Well, let's do this for America just real quick and try to come up with what that number is. So first of all, let's talk about individual people, not families of 4, and then extrapolate from there, right? So in the U.S. these days, you would be middle class somewhere around 80,000 as a, or probably a little bit less. No, probably about 80,000 as a single person. See, these numbers have just exploded. When I was a kid, it was like 25,000, 30,000, right? But now they say for a family of 4, poverty line in the U.S. is 136,000, average across the whole country based on standard poverty line numbers going back to the 1930s, based on the same factors, right? And so for middle class in the U.S., you need a household income, right? That's dual income, two kids, of somewhere around 200,000 to be middle class now in the U.S. Which that just sounds crazy, right? When you start saying it, but that is kind of what it is. But when you think about, okay, so 200,000 is kind of the starting of middle class. Where does middle class end as a dual income family? And probably somewhere around 800 to 900,000 would still be middle class, right? If you're bringing in 2 parents, 2 kids, 7 figures per year, I think maybe you're breaking out of middle class, but I'm not even clear in the United States if that would be true. But that means, let's just say $1 million is what moves you into upper class, but I don't know that is true. But that's about true, right? We normally refer to the leaving middle class around the 1 percenters. Traditionally, if you go back to the Obama era, everybody would talk about the 1 percenters. Well, the 1 percenters then is about 900,000 today. So if we say just under 200,000 to 900,000 is the middle class range in the United States today, then that's roughly a 5 times or 500% swing between the bottom and the top of that range. That's a really big income range, right? A person who's making 200,000 and a person who's making almost 5 times that, like, one is like, I can get a house someday, and the other is like, I can buy all your neighbors' houses and make money off of them and put cars in them and have like, and only work half the year and all kinds of things. Like all kinds of weird things happen when you're making that kind of money here. Here, that would be really good. So the same kind of thing happens here in Nicaragua that Brent says 200,000. Wow. How do people raise a family? I think what you're finding in America is people aren't. Right? That is the consistent story, is everyone is freaking out and doesn't know how they're going to raise a family. And loads and loads and loads of Gen Zers are just being like, I can't, or I don't want to. It's not worth it. And people who are older, the Gen Xers and stuff, are just like, they're glad their kids are mostly grown, and the millennials are just screwed. They had kids because they didn't know to stop, and they don't have a way to make the money to support them. Like, it's rough. Do you remember when millennials were little kids and not about to retire? Anyway. Just real quick, id Group says, the last time I flew into Nicaragua from El Salvador, I bet that was Avianca, because that's who does that. The airline wanted to see my exit ticket. Avianca is well known for running those scams. Lots of scams like them. If you don't get hit with that one, they might pull another. I've been hit with several scams from them, but not that one. But lots of people have lots of stories. Pretty much all airlines do it. I have not heard of Spirit doing it. No, that's probably not true. I think I have. They've not pulled that shit with me. But actually, no one has pulled that specific one with me. Spirit has done nothing with me. I have heard tell, I believe, of someone who said that Spirit did pull the exit thing to get them off a plane. But it's airlines in another country. What are you going to do? They can say what they want. But so anyway, so entry middle class, the lowest income of middle class here in Nicaragua is 800, generally accepted by people I've told that number to. And it's based off of a number of factors that we use to calculate like how you could live and what it would take, and what neighborhoods you can live in and what your lifestyle is like. And then I have this tea that I'm forgetting to drink. Let me just bring this over. And then if you were to do the same thing and say, well, where does middle income kind of go in Nicaragua? Well, it probably goes to somewhere around, and it's going to be a bigger swing than in the U.S. because you're comparing buying power to the outside, and so you're probably still going to be middle class up to the $8,000 or $9,000 per month, right? So we switched numbers a lot because in America we talk years. So, $100,000 a year. In Nicaragua we talk $8,000 per month, right? So I switched what I was saying. Let me back up. $800 to about $5,000 per month. I jumped in my head from single income to dual income. So if you're bringing in $5,000 a month as a single person, you're really high middle class. If you're bringing in $6,000 as a single person, I think everyone would be like, yeah, they're not middle class anymore, right? You're definitely into he bought a Corvette for fun and had it shipped in from the U.S. kind of numbers, right? Because it's you just have wild amounts of money, right? You're buying extra houses for fun. Your family's depending on you across multiple generations. All kinds of things. Now, fun notes. Now, a big difference is in the United States, we have the quote-unquote advantage that if you were to bring in $900,000 a year, your extended family does not automatically feel entitled to your money most of the time. In Nicaragua, if you were to bring in $6,000 a month, your family would be coming out of the woodwork and thinking that you had to support them and give them a place to live and stuff. It would be a very different, I think, my opinion, a very different experience, and the ability to take that income level and turn it into what feels like above middle income would be different. So all that said, let's backtrack and say what is middle middle income look like? And it's probably in the $1,600 to $1,800 per month range, which is about $25,000 per year. That would put you as a single person well into the super comfortable middle income bracket. That's where you can easily afford a car. You can easily afford a luxury house. Not a mansion, but you can easily go up to, here in Leon, you can go up to Fatima. You can get a beautiful place in a really nice, super safe, gated 24-hour security neighborhood. And you're looking at rents south of 800, maybe south of 600. Maybe you know it's only one person. You could get a pretty amazing house at 500 and be like, this is really nice. What would I do with more? Especially Nicaraguans who just aren't used to sprawling with all this stuff. And you can get an affordable car, and you can have a really nice home and live in a really nice neighborhood. You can go out to eat all the time. I know couples who have combined income probably a lot closer to 3,000. So roughly those numbers for two people, and the amount of money that is, right? They have a big house with lots of bedrooms. They live in a nice community, new. They rent, they didn't buy. They have a really nice car, costs about twice as much as my car. They go out to eat every day. They can go to the gym every day. They, can work from home, all kinds of, like, they just have this really luxury lifestyle. At those numbers, you can pretty much do anything. You can't just make it rain whenever you want, but you've got really, really solid excess expenditure capability. It Group says, when you do a border run like driving to Costa Rica, do the border folks require an exit ticket? Costa Rica always requires an exit ticket. Nicaragua never requires an exit ticket. That is, neither has an exception. There's no process for the one to have one, and the other is supposed to ask every time. All right, let's go check out Chinandega. Sorry, that took a while. Nicaragua's on the Trump administration's Western Hemisphere hit list. This is commentator, which could be just funny because it's an 8, or it could be because he's from Idaho and loves potatoes. Just saying. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio stated that they want 3 countries in the region: Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua. Yes, they have. They've also lost every engagement in Nicaragua for 170 years. So it's probably something that they'll think very hard about because this was a pretty big embarrassment to them in the 70s, in the 80s. Mostly the last thing they want is Nicaragua on the news, because we tend to be everything they fear to see in the mirror. So is there concern about it? Yeah, absolutely. We have the FAA situation that's come up that they're warning about flights because they're expecting military action in the region. Of course, we're in the dead center of what they are warning over. We have noted that. We're very aware. But the U.S. is losing big time on the ground in Venezuela, and instead of getting in there and getting a victory, they got spanked and are now unable to hold ground on the ground. They don't have support from the people, and none of the stuff that they wished to accomplish there was done. Right? The government that they were going to topple is more entrenched than ever. If anything, they proved to the people why they needed to support that government. And that's what we're hearing and seeing in the news, to the point where the U.S. is having to fake news, show old footage of sporting events and stuff, trying to make it look like life on the ground is very different than it is, because it's going so badly. So with that and the recent, what looks like pretty massive defeat in Greenland, where they were arming up and the NATO countries started moving troops into Greenland, the U.S. is feeling, I think, a bit boxed in and not necessarily in a position to be able to do anything really capable. They've said a few things, right? One, their puppet that they're trying to put into Venezuela has said that Venezuela is going to take on Nicaragua. Like, okay. They've made a point that Cuba is before anything that happens in Nicaragua. and we aren't seeing those things happen yet, right? So, is there a risk? Of course there is. But to whom is the risk greater? Those in Nicaragua or those in the U.S.? Historically speaking, the risk is greater to the U.S. I don't know why the U.S. keeps trying to do this. I do actually, but it's a foolish move historically, and if they think that the Nicaraguan people are not prepared to defend this country, I think one, they don't have the slightest grasp of history, and two, you know, and this is something that I was joking with someone about. I don't know if joking is the right word, but just talking about, you know, do you realize the U.S. Embassy like never goes out? You never see any person from the embassy out in the country, and it makes you wonder, how do they know anything about Nicaragua? Even the people who live in Managua and work in the embassy, like, as far as I know, they don't go out to restaurants. They don't go out to musicals. They don't go bowling. I don't know that you ever would run into them. And it's a weird situation that they're supposed to be reporting on a country that they've never been in, right? The same thing we see with like the big, Deloitte and Touche and those kinds of places. They have offices in Managua, and you're like, oh, have those people ever come around to the second biggest city, the third biggest city, the fourth biggest city, and investigated anything about the country? Maybe, but we've never seen them, right? And it harkens back to the Lonely Planet people, who here are like a big joke, because as you go around the country with a Lonely Planet guide, nothing in it's accurate. None of the places exist. And you talk to people, and they're like, yeah, they were here. You know, when I got here into the hospitality trade 6 years ago, everyone at that point, it was a big joke that they had not been here in forever, and that one guy had traveled through, just tried a few things, jotted a few things down, made it it was a very half-assed thing, slapped together this thing, and luckily I'm one of the ones who I own a place that was written about in it, so we benefit, and some other places, almost all the places that were written about it went out of business, and it's all fake. Anyone who buys The Lonely Planet, it's a complete scam. And that was years ago. Have they been back since? No. Are they still printing books? To the best of my knowledge, they just, one guy, one time long ago, got a kind of feel for the country in a 2-3 week period, wrote a bunch of notes, and they just keep reprinting it year after year after year. And then once you're here in a place like this, and you're like, wait, there's no resources on the ground for any of these things that come out from the outside. The embassy doesn't know what the roads are like in Leon. They don't know what the safety's like. They don't know anything. They don't even know who's who in the country. They're not part of the community. And these accounting firms are not out here doing anything. Where are they getting their information from? Not from this country, right? Even if they have an office here, they're not going anywhere. You'd have to see them. And so it's very eye-opening in that way. Graduate Jamal just says, you mean they'll swoop into Nicaragua in the middle of the night? They've been hesitant to do that for a long time. I think they feel it's a bad idea, because there were situations where it was a concern that they would have done it and they didn't. And that they didn't when it was as easy as it could have been tells us a lot, I think. Manuel says, Nicaragua accepted my Costa Rica registered car as a guarantee of exit, gave the car 30 days and gave me 90. So it's not a guarantee of exit. There's no exit visa from Nicaragua. Cars always get 30, you always get 90. That's just what the entrance is. Brent says, hey, they'll be so mired down in Venezuela, then even worse in Cuba before they get to Nicaragua, and Nicaragua's growing international tourists visiting in greater numbers. Yep. I can't imagine the threat being immediate. That's what it feels like. Yeah, the bogged down in Venezuela thing is, they had to see that coming. Like, that was really obvious. I don't know how they didn't realize that was going to happen. Like, you got to be really disconnected from global politics to think that Venezuela was going to be easy. All right. Let's get this. Hey, we got a map. This is Nicaragua. Here, we'll zoom out so you can see this right here. This is Nicaragua. Down here is little Costa Rica. Panama hanging out down here. This is our big sibling up here of Honduras, little El Salvador nestled in there, and Guatemala. Over here, a little bit of Mexico poking in up there, and just a little edge of the disputed territory of Belize. All right, so we're over here in the Leon Chinandega zone. How handy that they highlighted just those two cities for us. Thanks, Google Maps. That's perfect. Way out here, and this gives you a feel for just how far away it is. Puerto Cabezas, where Luke and I are talking about taking a road trip and taking you guys along for some video footage and awesome interviewing activity stuff going way out there. But that gives you a feel. That is far. The distance between us and Puerto Cabeza is longer than the entire Pacific coast of Nicaragua. It's a long drive. It's about 4 hours of driving just for me to pick up Luke before we begin the real drive. And that drive out to Puerto Cabeza is one of the famous drives from whatever it is called, Dangerous Roads or something like that. It was like episode 2 of Dangerous Roads. Episode 1 was Bolivia, where my team drives every day. Like, it's actually a road where my team drives like every day. And then episode 2 was the road to Puerto Cabezas. And I remember watching it while we were stuck in COVID. During COVID, we were stuck in Texas, but we had already started the process of moving to Nicaragua, and we were watching it. We're like, hey, this is our chance to see some of where we're going to be living. And it was this funny, dangerous road thing. And even on the World's Most Dangerous Road show, we're like, that's not a dangerous road. That's just a rough road. Like, it's flat. You're not going to die. You're just going to get stuck. I do want to point out that this is the Reserva Natural Basawas. And if you go on to Apple Music and get the Apple Music official rain playlist for sleeping, the first one on the playlist is actually rain in Basawas. So that's pretty cool. Luke says, why did you guys choose Puerto Cabezas over Bluefields? A couple of reasons. One is it's the new Highway 5 that we really want to check out. Basically, it's a continuation of this one out of Tolica, and goes through Sebaco through Matagalpa, then we pass Hinotega, we just skip it, we're just like, hello, and then we head way out here through Waslala, which I want to check out. Come through. I really want to go check out Bonanza. We've talked about this on the show before. There's some hilarious stuff out there that I want to see. We'll look at that maybe after Chinandega. And then Rosita's supposed to be okay. I don't know Sasa. And then Puerto Cabeza is, so a couple of reasons for that. One is it's the biggest thing on the East Coast, and it's really poorly represented in YouTube land. So, like, it's bigger than Bluefields, but nobody goes there. And it's like, that seems unfair, but it's got a nice highway. So it's got a whole amazing highway, the Dangerous Roads Road, that we can film. That's going to be amazing. It's a whole city that nobody has filmed. That's going to be amazing. And it's just off the beaten path, but it's also right out of Matagalpa. So the road that we do everything on in Matagalpa continues on there. And I was out doing some stuff in Matagalpa, and the road was just beautiful. Let's just zoom in here. This is the city of Matagalpa, and this is 5 heading up into the mountains. And I forget how far up I went. I feel like I went to La Dalia. That seems right. Somewhere around there. Oh, I went here, just short of La Dalia, to Cascada La Luna. And this whole drive through here is so beautiful. So beautiful. And of course, you're overlooking the Devil Natural Reserve over here. In the distance, you can see the Quiragua mountains. I don't know if you can see Cerro Cascahuas, but it's like this whole area is just, here, we'll give you a satellite view. It's so green. It's mountains, but not crazy high. You're driving along a ridge. It's little tiny communities. But it's so different than this part of Nicaragua, and just gorgeous. So that we were so much like, oh my gosh, I want to drive that and like see it turn into jungle. I want to see all those mountains. I want to cross the entire zone. Like, it just really seems fun. I'm not saying I don't want to go to Bluefields too. That would be fun for sure. But that really looks like a great drive and a great destination at the end. So Yeah. All right. So let's get back to this map and show you guys a little bit of Chinandega. So we're here in Leon, where I live, and that's all that's important in the universe. So if you're coming out of Leon, you take Route 3, or as we call it, the bypass. And I know some people are like, but this is the bypass going along Leon because it bypasses Leon. It sounds that way. That is not what it is. It is all the bypass. 3 is the bypass for the Pan American, where it bypasses Managua. What it's actually doing is bypassing Tegucigalpa. So we come into Chinandega. So the outskirts, for really quite a bit of a ways, is really nice neighborhoods, but not very big, coming into Chinandega. Remember, Chinandega is not a great big city. This is a little bit bigger than half the size of Leon. You're not going to have a huge number of neighborhoods like Leon has, but we don't have the weird river coming through town the way that Leon does that cuts everything up and makes it impossible to figure out what's going on. Now, Golden Restaurant, I have not seen yet, so I don't know this place. We're going to look at pictures because I like looking at pictures of restaurants. So this is brand new, this picture at least, November 2025. Now, here's some older ones. Restaurant, recreation, catering, and events. It's funny. I know a lot of you are looking at this going, that's very Nicaraguan. But for Nicaraguans, we're all like, oh, this is so modern because we're just used to these like different standards of things. It's funny that like this picture, I can tell is Chinandega. Just the style of Chinandega is just enough different that you can spot it. Those are very, very white kids for that ad. But you can see on the outskirts of town, there's a whole bunch of like restaurants and stuff as you approach town, which is a little bit surprising, but it really does sprawl. And Chinandegans really do have cars a lot more than most of Nicaragua. So things on highways outside of town does pretty well. So as you come into town, going left and going out of town, this is mostly industrial. This is not a great living area. I don't know that any of it's bad, but it's some places look okay along here. But this is the road going out to the beach. So lots of country places out here, some little communities. There's a hospital hanging out. It's a big hospital, actually. I'm not sure this is the big one, but there is a big one out there somewhere. Let's see if this is... That's got to be... Yeah, that's a fair... Is that a plane? No, it's a bird. This isn't a huge hospital, but for being outside the city on the road to the beach, it's pretty cool. So I've never really spent time in these neighborhoods. Coming up, this is the interesting stretch from this circle, this rotunda, to probably the river, but realistically this rotunda. And this road going north is the road to Honduras. So this is where you kind of leave civilization if you head up this way. And if you take this road going west, that goes to El Viejo and the northern beaches. But this area is what's interesting. So right here on the inside of this loop, which is only kind of inside, but this slightly inside loop, this is a nice area. You can see that the roads change and like it's kind of big buildings. So this is a nice area with lots of restaurants and stuff like that, and some amount of housing. This area is Calvario, and that is a rough barrio. So this immediately drops into the poor areas of town. Of more interesting is Montserrat over here, and there's a few barrios here, Montserrat being one of the main ones. This whole area, which is at least this big, is, and I'm sure this as well, and I bet this becomes in the future, this area is very wealthy, really interesting. I guess this is Los Angeles, and this is Montserrat. Very nice houses. Very much apart from the city, even though it's right there. And so I like this area a lot. And along this highway is just really nice. This is the Hotel Los Portales that I like a lot. This should be the Fariones Dragonfly, the restaurant that I go to all the time. I rave about this place. Fariones Hotel right here. Hostel Los Angeles. Even this, which I have not looked at before, I bet is going to be quite nice. And you're going to be like, oh, that's a nice looking hostel. I guarantee. That's a nice picture. I like that. That's a cool room. So there's quite a bit in Shenandoah just there that's quite nice. So here's Calvario that you pretty much want to avoid. And notice that Calvario is a huge portion of the city, right? Like quite big. Libertad, I believe, is about the same. I'm familiar with this northern part of El Calvario a bit. Central Park and this zone, so downtown is actually kind of farther west than you would think. Given the way that the city's laid out, it's not here in the dead center. It's a little bit west. You've got some really nice parks here. The Park Infantil is great. They put in a big water park. I think that's what you can see here. But this main park for kids is just beautiful. The main park is great. This is the police station, so it's very handy. You've got loads of like restaurants and stuff around here. It's a nice neighborhood. Now I've never lived there, so maybe everyday life is a little bit different than I'm imagining. Oh, this is the same cafe that we have in Leon. And then down here, I don't know. This is probably very middle of the road barrio is my guess. Got the cemetery down here. Unfortunately, there's just a lot about Shenandoah I can't tell you. And then you got a little kids stadium over here. And you can see it drops off to fields when you get out here. Like it suddenly is nothing, which is really interesting. And then you have the road going up, and this is El Viejo. Its satellite city is so close. It's really interesting how close they are. If you're on this road, with the only road, right, you only feel like for this little tiny bit, you feel like you're in the country, then you're in a little bit of stuff. This is actually my old finca. And then a little bit out here. For a little while, this was is it back open now? I haven't looked at it in years. How old are these pictures? 2023? Okay, so 2020, this is before us. We had it just for a little bit in 2021, 2022. It was a cute little place out in the country. I don't know where that is. That is not there. That's it. There's nice trees and... yeah, so that's Shenandoah. There's a little bit of neighborhoods up north, but I don't know anything about them. Now, let's see. So unfortunately, I don't have a ton of insight on Shenandoah. I wish I had more. Where was the cool hotel en route to the autonomous Norte? I'm going to show that in a second. On your trip, literally all the Nicas will think you guys are brothers. 3 years of temp residency no longer gets you the 5-year card. You reapply annually, Luke says. Yep. My buddy Silvio, this is Larry, has a big house in Montserrat. He has 500-acre farm of sugar that he sells exclusively to Flor de Caña and a 100-acre peanut farm. Wow. I assume not connected with the house, some distance away. Boy, that is a lot of acreage for anything. Okay, we're going to switch the map back and look up north. All right. Luke wanted to know about our drive heading out. So here's 5 going through Wasatch. So I bet all these places have neat things, right? And if we're just driving, Luke and I, we're going to be like, we're stopping all kinds of places. But if we get up and go to Bonanza, I think this is the place that he's talking about because it's on the road going north. And I feel like it was over here somewhere. There was a really cool... That's not it, but we could stop at this place and get these tacos. Actually, that looks good. Okay, we can go to Salke. We could try that out. But somewhere along here was a really neat place in the middle of nowhere. Those are beautiful views. Random people. If only, oh, that's it. Those are the other people from 2019. If only they knew they were now on the show, they'd be like, "This is amazing." Nope, that one doesn't have pictures. The New Dawn Bonanza. This is the one. This is it, Luke. The New Dawn Bonanza. Like, I want to stop in Bonanza just so this is where we stay. Air conditioning, which you probably don't need. I think it's pretty high in the mountains. You got Tejadas. I like that it's like stepped. Luke just dropped that pin. I know exactly where it is. Did you see how fast I got to it? Like we're gonna have no problem finding the New Dawn Bonanza. Larry says it's a family farm 20 miles away. Him and his wife stayed next to me and your friend May last year. Oh, cool. And oh, they got TV. I don't know about those shelves. I love their like fountainy thing in the middle. And they got parking inside. Like this is perfect. Perfect place to film, get some food, chill on a long drive to the middle of nowhere. Yeah, gated in from the... Not that you have to worry about anything out there. I like that it's like a light at night. Again, the random people in the pictures are hilarious. 2024, so she's probably still in the area. That's quite recent. It's a nice looking little community. Very small, obviously, but very hilly, looks pleasant. All right, that's enough of that hotel. Oh yeah, we're definitely mounting the 360 on the rooftop. That makes for such awesome footage. All right, so it's a little bit off the road. That is not a nothing drive off the road to go see it. That's 30 kilometers or so just to get up there, but it's worth it. And here's Rosita. That looks kind of cool. It's hard to beat the New Dawn. Let's check out this place. That is the only picture. Hello. And then I love how straight this road is. Like, whew, there's no fooling around at this point. It's just, we got to get there. Let's go to satellite. Does it really look like that? Like, I don't think there's really... Well, maybe there is. Tienda La Chiquita. What? Just in the middle of nowhere with this mine next to it. Gravel pit, maybe? I don't know. Okay. The Wawa River. It's going to be quite the drive. I think the Wawa River is how people got places in that most dangerous roads. So this is Puerto Cabezas, and you can see it looks nothing like the layout of other towns. Now, there is an airport, but no one goes there. So much not roads, right? Like, look at this town. There's no roads. Like, none. And I can't tell if there's like water or like cars on grass, what we're looking at. It's very hard to tell what's going on. So this is what roads look like. There's a few. The Restaurante Crisfa. Bar Luna Caribe. Alrighty. Yeah, so Puerto Cabeza, it's going to be exciting. At Margarita Beach, going to mount the 360. I'll bring my mosquito netting and some magnets for the car so we can keep the windows open. Aquila 4000. Hey, Scott, random question. Do people use dryers there? And if so, is there natural gas or are they using propane? They're using propane normally, I think. Yes, there are dryers here. Yes, I own dryers. So I think I own 5 dryers. So they're not unheard of, but they're not normal. Normal people are not using them, but they definitely exist. And because of the rainy season, they can be relatively handy, right? You may be like, who really needs a dryer? You just put stuff outside. Well, when you go half the year without sun and it's just raining all the time, sometimes you're like, I'd really like if my clothes didn't mildew on the line. So that's a little bit of a pain. So we do enjoy having it. We don't use it most of the time. Most of the time we're out on the line for stuff. But certainly during the rainy season, we do at times use the dryer. I'm looking for interesting things to go see in Bilwi. It's going to be rough. It's going to be an experience. I need to find interesting hotels in Bilwi because I don't have any clue what is out there. The road into Puerto Cabezas just looks so interesting. Oh my gosh, every time you do anything on Google, it's like, you don't really want to be in Puerto Cabezas. We're going to take the focus away and look somewhere else. No, really, that's where I want to be. Just trust me on this, okay? Oh, my dad is heading to bed. Have a good night, Dad. Here we got the Hotel Monter. That's 2018. Uh-huh. All right. Breakfast looks good. Oh, excuse me. Well, that looks nice. That's their official picture. Anybody know them? She is not happy with that hotel. Just so you know. This is a big staff. Is there any prices on this hotel? Nope. That is such a funny dining room. The El Cortijo. Well, they have crinkle fries. That's something. Oh. Oh, no. Oh, the Caribbean and all the wood floors. She may not be happy with more than just that hotel. Wait, who's she? Do you mean Luke? It's Luke and I going on a trip. Crib version of the Overlook Hotel. Yep. Oh, I forgot we still got that vertical thing going on. What does the show look like when we do it maps and stuff in vertical? Oh, I bet that's not as cool. For those of you who are watching, let us know. Are you watching the normal way? Or are you watching the vertical holding my phone way? Now that we have that on offer, like, is anyone actually doing that? I don't know if I'm sure I get stats somewhere, but I'm going to see if I can find some. No, it doesn't show me who's watching or how many people are watching one way or another. So that's too bad. That would be interesting to know if, like, does anyone do it? Is it super popular? Is it making a difference? I don't know. Interesting. Ooh, I'm feeling a little bit tired tonight. I've been tired all day. It's been, well, ever since I was sick earlier. I guess that was Sunday. It was not that long ago that I was under the weather. And, haven't quite caught all the way up yet. On that note, I think I will step away and get caffeine. Give me just a minute. Bring up the stream. You guys asked some questions. Dale is watching landscape on both phone and TV. Oh, interesting. We're up to 31 people, so don't disappear while I'm getting caffeine. Are we just talking about the shorts in portrait? Yes, we are, Steve. Let us know if you're watching the portrait mode, because we're interested to know if anyone is. No difference in form, computer, or phone. Oh, so weird. Wait, hold on. I'm going to see if I can... Sometimes, because it's me... Because it's my own show, sometimes it's like, hey, do you want to see this? And sometimes it, like, ignores me and acts like I don't exist. So it's a little bit confusing sometimes. So there's the live. So if I jump into the live, what happens? Get some weird ad that makes no sense. I love how the ads make no sense. Okay, yeah, I'm on mobile, and it gave me the wide. So he says, yeah, I can't get the live in portrait. I can't either. By the way, give a thumbs up, guys. There's only 19 thumbs up, and I'm one of them. So, let's get on that. Yeah, what makes some people get vertical live and some people get horizontal live? I have no idea. Maybe it just knows me and it's like, you don't like things vertical. True. It looks just funny. The phone is about 3 seconds faster than desktop. All right, guys, I will be right back as I get that caffeine. I'm already back. Now, I know there was 31 people on before. 27. Come on, guys. Come on. Oh, Dale gave 2 likes. Thank you. What's everyone got going on this week? I have not gotten to get my... I have not managed to get my Dungeons and Dragons group going yet. Trying 2 things. One, trying to get an adult group here in town. Now we're at 25. Come on. Janet's still here. Thank you, Janet. I want to get a game going just with my kids, just because we like to play together and we hang out in the evenings. My kids are loving The Expanse. If you guys have not watched it, The Expanse is fantastic. And I've made it through about half of it, and then now I'm watching it again with my kids, and we're about a third of the way through, so they're catching up. And it's just such a good show. Good acting, good writing. And one of the things I like is they make the characters complex. And so you spend a lot of time hating a character, then liking a character, or liking a character, then hating a character. And my kids are like, everyone's making me so angry in this show. And I'm like, that's kind of, they're trying to make people complex and not just simple good and bad in all these cases. That's part of what makes it what it is, that these characters have their own motivations, and it's a difficult situation and like all this stuff. And they're often like, oh, this character's terrible, and then they have like a redemption arc, and they're like, no. And so it's been It's been really good, and we'll watch it late at night, and sometimes at like 2 o'clock in the morning. My eldest daughter, who generally is the one who's like, "No, I don't feel like watching anything," she'll be like, "I want to watch another episode," and we'll end up staying up until like 3 o'clock in the morning to watch it. We're like, what? That never happens. So it's been really cool. All right, this caffeine's gonna help. I need some kick. Maybe we're gonna have a slow night tonight. Oh, Big Jim 44. Oh, D&D epic. We've actually Dale's recovering from 3 teeth extractions. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you go to Betsy? In which case, I have to say, heavens to Betsy, 3 teeth. Yeah, Big Jim, we've been talking about D&D here for a few weeks. So I've always played. Love D&D from when I was a kid. I started playing in the 80s. My kids have played a few times. My wife likes to play. And we've got some... Luke says, my only critique of The Expanse, the hero always looks like he's going to cry. I hope you're not calling James Holden the hero, because I can't. Amos is clearly the hero, so just stop there. So the thing that I love most about The Expanse is Christian is just awesome. She's such a cool character. And Amos is so autistic. And for anyone who's not autistic and watching the show, I think Amos is just this, like, I don't want to say childish, but childlike character who's very simple in a lot of ways. But when you really pay attention to him, he's complex in this is really an autistic soldier kind of way. And his view of the world of just things have to be done, and when they have to be done, they have to be done, is so well, that sounds like fun, Roger. He is pumping concrete in the morning on the cement pond. Good luck. Ours was rushed a bit. But Amos is, as someone who's autistic, identifying with him so much. So often, I think people, and especially my youngest, is very much frustrated by him. Like, why would he just listen to that person? Like, because he doesn't know what to do, and this is how he identifies a path, right? She's solving that for him. And, oh, that's right. You're at Dr. Betsy's teacher. All right, we're back up to 30. Not so bad. But I just love the character. And I don't want to spoil anything in the show, so watch it. Yeah, D&D, we've been playing a long time. My kids like it. And we really want to get playing at home some. And I forget what I was doing. Oh, yes. I just really like it. And Pathfinder. And so we're hoping to get like an expat group here going in town. And Diego, who's not on yet, wants to play. So there's definitely some interest. And we don't need a big group. And we had a group a couple of years ago, but it didn't really stick to it. And my kids they're okay with playing with adults, but they would like a group where it can just be us, because there's a ton of time that we would like to play, and just getting people together is very hard. So it's kind of we're figuring out how to have groups, basically. And how to have resources here. Like, getting books is hard. Not everybody has a laptop. There aren't that many people who have played previously, so that makes it a little bit more challenging. But we have a number of people that are interested, and so figuring it out. Luke is signing off. Study time for class tomorrow. Have a good night, Luke. Has someone developed a video game version of D&D? There's been so the early D&D. Is that really what you're asking? D&D has been in video games since what's known as the Gold Box series, Pool of Radiance. I want to say 1987, 1988, followed by Curse of the Azure Bonds. Oh shoot, I can't name them all. I own all of the original box series from the early D&D games, but yeah, they've been making since the late 80s. They've been making a lot of D&D games. They've always had D&D series going on, some of them better, some of them worse. Some really good ones include Baldur's Gate from the late 90s, absolutely classic, Icewind Dale series, Neverwinter Nights series. Oh my gosh, there's so many. Right now, Baldur's Gate 3 has been so big that it's considered to be a kind of reinvention of the entire D&D ecosystem, because people are suddenly so interested in it because that one game, Baldur's Gate 3, is so popular that between that and Stranger Things, it's like more than doubled the number of people playing D&D over the course of the last 2 years. So D&D is in this massive renaissance, which is pretty cool. And of course, other games riding along with that as well. But just to give you an idea of how many games. So I started playing, I'll tell you the first time I get to one that I don't have. Starting in 1988, Pool of Radiance, Hillsfar, Curse of the Azure Bonds, Secret of the Silver Blades, Eye of the Beholder 2, Legend of Darkmoon, Pools of Darkness, Gateway to the Savage Frontier, Treasures of the Savage Frontier, Eye of the Beholder 3, Assault on Myth Drannor. There was a not game, but Forgotten Realms Unlimited Adventures Make Your Own Kit by 1993. I did not have Dungeon Hack in 93. They made a new series of more serious ones, starting with Menzo Baranzan in 94. Blood and Magic, Descent into Undermountain. So 92 to 98 was kind of a gap period. And then Baldur's Gate, Tales of the Sword Coast, Icewind Dale, Baldur's Gate 2, Shadow of Amn, Icewind Dale, Heart of Winter, Baldur's Gate 2, Throne of Baal, Icewind Dale, Trials of the Lure Master. Then there was a remake of Pool of Radiance that I've never actually seen. I'm really interested. It's actually considered a sequel. I really don't know that one. That's 2001. Then Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, which was considered pretty good, 2001. Then Neverwinter Nights in 2002 was considered great, like a game changer for the RPG genre. Icewind Dale 2, back to Eye of the Beholder series. I don't know what that was. I don't know anything about the return. A bunch of, for years and years, just those series releasing new updates year after year after year. Then Neverwinter Nights 2 in 2006. I don't know, Daggerdale in 2011. Then it slowed down a bit. There was a period where they didn't release too much. And then they re-released Dark Alliance in 2021, which is a pretty big one. And then Baldur's Gate 3 came out in 2023 and has been the leading RPG for the last 3 years. So those are pretty big ones. And then just last year, the enhanced edition of Neverwinter Nights 2 released, which is shocking. But I don't know anything about the enhanced edition. I need to look into it. So yeah, there's a lot of video games in that series, and I own nearly all of them. Thank you for the historical summary. Impressive. I'm a big D&D player. Yeah. Some of those early ones are really good. Baldur's Gate is really good, but Baldur's Gate 3, my kids play it. They really, really like it. But that's not why they're into it. They were playing the tabletop prior to that. I started, just real quickly for those who know D&D, I started on the original rules, skipped AD&D, did most of my gaming when I was young on AD&D 2nd edition, had lots of groups. I ran my schools. I was Eddie at my school, except I was cool. didn't play a lot. I had a period of time that I didn't get to play a lot. And then when I moved to Texas, my friends there played a bit. So we had groups there. My wife and I used to play, and then my kids like to play. But now they're at an age where it's like we really want to get into it. And I think it's a thing that we'll really enjoy together. The problem that I have, I love D&D, but I really like being a player, and I don't like being a dungeon master nearly as much. But I never am able to find someone who's an experienced dungeon master who wants to do it. So I'm kind of stuck with that, but is what it is. I don't mind dungeon mastering. My problem, as you guys can guess, right, is that I'm busy. And so it's so hard to get time to sit down and really get into D&D as a dungeon master, because it takes so much prep and I have to put in so much thought, and it's very difficult. So that's the thing that's tough for me. Dale says, my roommate in Las Vegas watched The Expanse. Looked better than most shows she watched, but still I can hardly ever get through a full season of shows I like anymore, much less several seasons. If it helps, Dale, most of the seasons are only 10 episodes long, so it's not nearly like most American shows where you have like this huge commitment. It's a lot more like Stranger Things, where it's only 6 seasons and it's only about 10 episodes per season, which is still a lot, obviously, but it is nothing like, say, Star Trek or something with 20-something. I guess those are starting to be fewer per season as well. It's kind of, the landscape is starting to change. Oh, sorry, Brian. Sorry, everyone. Brian's here. Too bad. But if you haven't watched Stranger Things, it's really good, too. I'm generally happy with the ending. I feel that the whole thing was a little bit over the top, but I'll let you guys decide. That's still 60 shows. Yes, it's still 60 shows. It's not nothing. I'll give you that. Hello. Oh, my daughter brought me a dog. What a sweet present. Now I have a dog. Hi. Hi. It's the Mia. It's the big one. I have to say, the show tonight is not nearly as popular as the show last night, even though we had prep for tonight. Although we're later. I don't know if that's a big... Oh, sorry, I've got to read this ticket that came in. I've got to look this up. Sorry, I've got to work while we're doing this. Ask questions. I'm just stuck covering something. All right. Where does Nicaragua fuel come from? They come from Iran. Do they refine here or just finished products? Just finished products. No refining here. Only a few countries have refining capabilities. I don't really know how many, but it's not a lot. We are very small and don't produce our own oil. So it's definitely not here. Oh, Patricia says, the star of the live stream has arrived. It's Mia. She is the star. Oh, Edwin is here. Hey, Edwin, how's it going? But yeah, most of our fuel is coming in from Iran. Dale says, my problem with scripted shows is continuity, the drop-off in quality from season to season as the original creators and writers move on to the next project, and the inevitable use of tropes. I don't feel like that's going to happen in The Expanse. We haven't gotten there yet, but it feels like, and one of the reasons I like shorter shows like this or Stranger Things is that they are a single story from the very beginning. And Stranger Things, if you haven't watched it, it is the Duffer Brothers wrote it from beginning to end. They had the story was there from beginning to end. And that's it, right? Like there's no additional writers, no varying from the plot or anything like that. So it's oh, according to this, the Managua refinery for Puma Energy can do a small amount of refining. That doesn't, so it says started up in 1962 and has no link to the refinery. Maybe? I don't know where it would be. Oh, find my email while he's busy. Oh yeah, sneak my email in while he's busy. Scott. Ambiente says, what would a used 4x4 SUV cost in Nicaragua? I know that's a broad question, but a rough estimate for a not too old, but 150 kilometers. I'm sure he means 150,000 kilometers on it, and 4x4. So I had an older one. I wouldn't call it an SUV, but kind of a truckish Montero. That was like 6,000. Oh, Richard Hunt says, actually, a lot of small countries only import crude and then refine into multiple products. Jamaica and Aruba are Aruba? Wow. Well, interesting. I did not know that. Especially about Aruba. I bought a 2013 diesel Toyota 4Runner, 114,000 for 22,000. Wow, that's expensive. Richard Johansson, Jamaica actually refines a lot for smaller Caribbean countries. Interesting. That would make sense, that it's kind of centralized. But so a non 4x4 SUV, just a normal SUV, you can get for about 22,000 new here, but it's different than a 4x4 truck chassis. I gotta pass on a ticket. This will just take a second. All right. They do it for tax breaks and stuff like that. Ambiente says, that's roughly North American prices, Roger. It really is. Yeah, these days you can get so much new in that price range. 4x4s are a little bit tough to come by. You're looking at a lot more at like a Great Wall or something like that. For a lot of stuff here, you don't need 4x4s a lot of the time. I know a lot of people say you do, and some people do for sure. If you're going to live out at Salinas Grandes or something like that, like, yeah, you need a 4x4 if you're going to live in a wilderness area and go off-roading to get to your house every day. But under normal conditions, I know that people say it all the time, but we go driving for years at a time, and you know, once in a while you're on a rough road, but a rough road does not require a 4x4, right? I've ended up on some pretty rough roads, and you're just like, you just slow down because it's not for very far. Having a 4x4 is a high cost every day kind of thing. Now, if you're Elton and you live up in the mountains and you're out on a farm and you got to get through all the time, yeah, it's different. Like, obviously, he's got to have a 4x4, but even for those of us that, you know, work out here and have to do a lot of different things and haul things around, having something heavy duty often doesn't you don't want to use all that fuel, have all that expense all the time. Sorry, just reading my messages as they come in, so I get a little bit distracted. I have a feeling, well, who knows? We may speed up a lot later on. We may make it kind of a short night because we've had kind of a busy week, and we don't have that many people on, and it's kind of a slow night. And the geckos. I often now have cats in the window, which is very cool. We have so many cats now. We have 7 cats. We're kind of all catted up around here. So this coming weekend, I actually don't know what's going on. Let's see, this weekend is the 24th. I feel like this might be a quiet weekend at home. My family was in Managua today. They did the shopping and stuff. My daughter had a... just seeing her foot doctor. She has a toe injury. Not a big thing. And is... just seeing a doctor about it, and she has a doctor that she likes in Managua, and Marcelo was out there seeing a doctor today, doing a checkup, and so they were out there today and did the shopping and stuff, and brought home sushi for everybody. So that was the day around here. And so this weekend, I really don't think anything's planned. Marcelo wants to film here in Sutiava at a new place. That could be cool. And right, that seems to be working. Doing a little bit of work in the background, trying to figure out a new product that we have. Trying to figure out how to make it work. Oh, that's what I'm checking. There we go. How about you guys? Any plans for this weekend? Scott, how much do you know about Honduras and Guatemala? What are some safer areas in both? This is from Ambiente. So Janice says, I beat you by 1 cat, but you beat me by 1 dog. So, okay, so I only know so much of Guatemala and Honduras, so don't want to... I'm not the expert necessarily here. I do love the area, and some of you know Russell, my empanada girl that has been on the show recently. She's actually moved to Honduras and living up there now. So let's take a look. So here we go. There's Nicaragua down here. This is Honduras up here. This big... It's got such a funny shape, Honduras. So places that are definitely not safe: Tegucigalpa and San Pedro Sula. These are big cities. Now, they're neat, right? So I like these cities. I'm not saying don't go there. I'm just saying let's be realistic. These are rough cities, but they're also big. They're also fun. Tegucigalpa is very mountainous. I have flown in there a few times. It's pretty cool. It's not far away from here at all. Weather is nice. They get rainbows. It is the capital, for those who don't know. And it's a very city feeling city, but because it's hilly, you get these neat neighborhoods on the hills, and even like look over here, like high rise on a hill. It's really cool. Like some of that stuff I really like. And I do like how close it is here, so it's very easy to visit by bus. And I really need to go up and do some filming into Tegucigalpa because I have not been there in a number of years. And this is the hill with the high rises. Like this is obviously, yeah, that's a bit old. But it's a neat place, and I like the sprawl that gives you the lights on the hills. That's just something I like. But it is a rough city, right? So that's rough. But this area, which is not very far away, this is famously a tourist area, quite safe, really beautiful. I really want to go there and hang out. I think we could do some really good shows there. This is higher up in the mountains. And from parts of this Valle de Los Angeles, there are spots where you can like see Tegucigalpa down the valley. Like it's really cool. Like that's somewhere out there in the distance is Tegucigalpa. Like that's just cool. Honduras mostly has higher altitude than we have here in Nicaragua, so pine and stuff is quite common, even in populated areas. That's pretty cool. I have done the entire drive here along the coast, and none of this would I consider bad. Choluteca was perfectly nice. Not a big place, but it is a place to visit. Very flat and warm, so it's going to remind you of Nicaragua. Nicaragua with a Honduran flair. Like if we told you this was Nicaragua, you wouldn't be surprised, except for that bridge. I'm not sure what that is. Is that just... That's just a big civic plaza. That's pretty cool. A lot of fast food. If you're looking for fast food nearby, and I love the mountains in the distance, like, whoa. I've been over that bridge, of course. That's what the bus takes when you're heading up. So you've got, this is the like historic region where you go to see the old Mayan ruins and stuff. So that's pretty cool. San Pedro Sula is supposed to be very much improved. It was the most dangerous city in the world not that long ago. So, you know, it doesn't take a lot to improve, but like it's actually viable to go to now. But it's the economic center of the country. I don't remember this building. That's pretty cool. But it's definitely a city with potential. Very urban compared to much of Nicaragua. And like, think about apartments and buildings like that. That could be nice, right? And this is, so San Pedro Sula is known for having some cool neighborhoods. Like, that's a beautiful complex. Oh, good. They have Little Caesars. We're saved. So anyway, that's the two big cities. Of course, you've got the port here, which is pretty small. This is where you launch to Guatemala. And then you have, let's see if I can find it, La Ceiba. This is where you get the launches going to the islands. So that's mostly what this is known for. But we can get buses from here in Nicaragua that go directly to La Ceiba. And from La Ceiba, you just catch the ferry and head out to Utila. Which is right here. So this is Utila. This is where my friend lives. And this is a tiny population. Look at how tiny this population is. This is a tiny island, and this is all empty. This is pretty much all empty. There's a little bit over here. Almost everything is right here. This is such a small place. But it's really well known. And then much better known is Roatan, which is right here. Quite a bit bigger, way more things on it. And then there's this other little island. And that's the little bit there. There's also this tiny, tiny island. Out here, I don't know why this is doing whatever it's doing. Oh, there we go. Out here, you got all jungle, just like Nicaragua is all jungle out here. So not a lot there. And then you do have a little bit in the islands out here. Like you got a little bit of like Pacific coast stuff to do, little tiny bits here. That's what I know of Honduras. Those are the areas I know. Kamigawa, I don't know how to pronounce it. Decent sized city, big airport. That's what they're talking about, putting the new national airport. Definitely worth stopping in. Comayagua. So while we're checking out, oh, Roger says they are proud users. They are proud of used Toyotas here. They were. I don't know how much now with the way the cherries are taking off. Are there any ferries and boat rides from Nicaragua to El Salvador from that peninsula in the northwest? Yes, there are. So that's pretty popular these days. They leave from here at Potosí. You can see the road just kind of goes to the edge, but this is the ferry right here. There's the ferry dock. That's the ferry. And the ferry goes to La Union, which is right here. So it actually goes into the Bahia de La Union. And then somewhere, I think this is the ferry line right there, comes in there. That, oh no, this is the one that goes there. But I think they both go to the same place. I don't know what the island out there has. That might be interesting. That could be a cute little community. All right, and then Guatemala. All right, so so most things that people do in Guatemala are in this little zone right here. And this is where almost all the population live. And then Huehuetenango, a little bit up here, absolutely gorgeous up there. Get some. Huehue. Right, so you got a little bit up there, but most everything's down here. There are beaches, right? But Guatemala is just not a beach culture. Antigua, of course, the big vacation spot. It's decently safe. No reason to avoid it. I'm not a big fan, but there's a bit to do there now. And like Habatenango is there, and there's a lot of things on the outskirts. It's essentially a suburb of Guatemala City, which is my favorite city, possibly anywhere. Just absolutely fantastic city. Guatemala is huge, right? So it's the entire population of Nicaragua in a single city, right? So there are safe bits, there are dangerous bits. I talked to Brits who have lived there for 40 years, and they're like, it's completely safe. Just you can't be an idiot and wander into the worst neighborhoods. But when can you ever, right? That's just not how life works. You got to be careful and not be stupid anywhere. So like I walk all over Guatemala City. I love it. I think it's fantastic. I stayed in Tecpan out here, which is the ancient capital. Not a lot to do, but what a gorgeous area. Best Airbnb I've ever had was there. It was really cool. Lago de Atitlan is one of the really big tourist areas. This is basically all safe. These are like little hippie communities mostly around the lake. Very touristy, which is unfortunate, but the lake is super cool, and if you've never done it, you have to do it. Not that far from the lake, really only a little bit farther than or a little bit closer than Antigua is Quetzaltenango, which is also known as Shela, where Scott from There's Got to Be Something More, decided to move up here with his wife after having been in Nicaragua for a little while. This is Guatemala's second city, probably quite a bit safer than Guatemala City. It's a good size city still, and you can see it's got big suburbs and outlying towns and stuff. It's a little bit higher in the mountains, so you've got a very cool weather up there for a pretty big city. I don't know. I have not gotten to go there. I've always wanted to spend time there and just have never been able to pull it off for whatever reason. Once again, it's doing that overlay thing. And so there's a lot. And there's really, for the most part, Guatemala is not this place you have to, even though its crime rate is high, you don't generally have to spend a lot of time worrying about that, right? It's like other countries. Most of the crime is when you go looking for it. Oh, you got caught in a drug deal? Well, that was dangerous. Yeah, absolutely. That would be dangerous. That's a very different thing. But if you're doing touristy things, pretty much anywhere is going to be fine. Chichicastenango, that's going to be fine. Flores is very nice tourist area. Tikal, obviously, in the reserve. Just recently, this entire portion of Belize up here, this whole huge portion of Guatemala and a big matching part of Mexico was all just turned into the world's second largest reserve. They supposedly just passed us in size, the combined Nicaragua-Honduras zone. So we're proud that the second and third largest wildlife preserves in the world are in Central America, but we're pissed that Guatemala tried to take the title away from us for the biggest. But you've got a lot. Right. In general, I wouldn't be worried. I've driven around Honduras. I've driven across it to El Salvador. I've gone in and out of Tegucigalpa a few times. A good friend lives in Utila and just took the bus up and did that. And she loves it up there. She's part Honduran, so it's a little bit different. But there really is. Be a little bit cautious. Be aware that Nicaragua's ridiculously safe. And when you go to Honduras, obviously, the percentages change. But as long as you're being aware and not being stupid, you're going to find that it's a very nice, welcoming, safe place for you as well. Guatemala, same thing, right? Don't be crazy. Don't go looking for trouble. Don't head into the rough barrios just because you think it's fun. Don't watch my videos where I go into rough barrios of Nicaragua and be like, I'm going to be Scott, but in Guatemala, those barrios are 1,000 times more dangerous, right? It's not the same thing. Right? Just because Scott can do it in Nicaragua doesn't mean you can do it anywhere, but especially not in a place like Guatemala or Honduras. Right? You can easily be in the wrong place at the wrong time in ways that wouldn't be a problem down here. right? You can be pretty reckless and pretty stupid in Nicaragua and come out just fine. Those areas, not so much, right? Now, that being said, I've ended up at a drug dealer's grandmother's birthday party in the hood in Guatemala City, and it was absolutely fine, and everybody thought it was wonderful that I was there, and all the aunties wanted to hang out with me and made me eat so much food. However, I was force-fed an unbelievable amount of habaneros cooked with onions, so danger comes in many forms. Gracias, Honduras is nice. I do like gracias, Honduras. That's not a comma, you're actually saying. I don't know gracias. San Pedro Sula was mostly dangerous in the poor suburbs like Barrio Rivera Hernandez. D. Gilbert, hey Scott, why are we focusing Guatemala? Sorry I'm late. Oh, it was just a question as which places were safe. Also, did you ever get more information about Algeria? I have a coworker from there, says good things, but poor economy. I've not really gotten too much information, but I really, really, really want to go. It's right at the top of my and my daughter's. If we're traveling outside of Latin America, I gotta say, I think that's our #1 place we want to go right now. It looks phenomenal. So much I want to go see and just explore in Algeria. So right now it feels like a bad time to do a bunch of extra travel places that are, Algeria is fine, but it's right next to Europe, which is kind of falling apart. So just kind of, I don't know if giving time is a good idea. I don't know. Don Timoteo says Yaxa is cooler than Tikal. It has a lot less tourists. Oh, good to know. I assume that is also in Guatemala. Where is it? I don't know where that is. Yaxa Lake. Aha! Somewhere near here. Oh, that's really easy for me to get to because I work here and here. Oh my gosh, we drive this casually. I can drive that, no problem. I do threaten sometimes to drive to the office. I never drive there. See if I can find the office. I know it's over here. Wait. Yeah, it's around about... somewhere along here. Somewhere in this tiny area is my office. Tell I'm really good at maps. Oh, I'm not even showing you the map. Oh my gosh. We're going to do this all again. This is Yaxa right here. And I work here and here. And this is not a very long drive to get there. And this is no more. So, like, that's very doable to just hitch a ride out there and go check that out. That would be really cool. And then Petin Itza is right there with Flores. I really want to go out to Flores. I need to figure out what this bus ride is like because that would be really cool to just take a bus to Flores. And then you can catch a flight out of Flores, as far as I know. Isn't there an airport there? Anyone know? Yep, there's the airport. Yeah, near Flores. I guess Tikal is right there too. It's all very close. Is that it? Oh, there we go. This lady really wants to be on the show. Well, that's cool. And then this is the famous Key Kulker, where the very, very touristy area of Belize. I like how this goes around the corner as you zoom in and out. All right. Oh, we do not have a lot of people on. It is definitely a slow night. It's really funny. I'm watching. I've got a stream. I've got a monitor on both the landscape and the portrait versions of the live stream, and they're not in sync. And so they're really close, but the vertical is maybe 1 second ahead of the other. So my head's like do 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 do. Oh no new messages. I'm feeling like maybe we should cut it short this week, guys. I know I love going all night, but sometimes I need a short week. And without a lot of people on, you are twins who are out of sync. That's pretty much what it is. Tony says mine says 32. Mine says 28. Every so often the one flash. And Jan says, it's okay, you've done a lot this week, honestly. Well, and much more is that it's... Oh, Janet says hers says 28 now. I was sick for 2 days this week, so I'm a bit behind on work, and I'm a bit behind on sleep, and I'm just a lot more tired and run down. So it's not a huge thing. Like, if we have a lot of people... Deagle, have you noticed much for price changes recently in Nicaragua? Things becoming more expensive? Some things... Hold on. Oh no, my dog's here. It depends what you're looking at. Food has definitely gone up in price mostly. Public transportation has really stayed flat. Taxis have gone up some. Labor just a small amount, but they do raise minimum wage, so we've noticed that. But overall, I feel like cost of living has remained really stable. Just some things, Oh, and since you say you're not really a robot, you actually do need sleep, especially if you've been sick, which you were. Is under 1,000 still feasible for a single person on a budget? Oh, absolutely. Yeah, have the prices gone up some? Yes, mostly in luxury goods. Right? Is 1,000 still tight? It's still tight, but there's a reason why they haven't changed the pensionato number. It's because that if you have a reliable $1,000 a month, you're okay, right? And one of the biggest indicators for me, now I'm out here in Leon, is that my apartment, which I had for a long time, and I don't have it anymore, but I know about it, is still renting at the same price that I was renting at 3 years ago, right? So as a rental that's in demand, right? We're not talking about a rental that like, well, that's a piece of shit, and I guess the price hasn't gone up because it's, you know, people who take it are rock bottomers. It's not like that. It is, oh, I just realized I left the thing on, and you can see that we've dropped to 24. Why am I showing that? Oh, because I'm doing, I'm really sorry. That's funny. How did that, oh. I'm trying to figure out, like, what am I showing that made that happen? It's because I closed the map. Luckily, I just leave the thing on. Who knows what I would have put on? Gotta watch. Chance says that was funny indeed. I was watching the twins though. Oh yes, you guys got to see what the twin thing was, and you get to see that my numbers are my numbers, right? Like I do. Okay, we'll just throw it up there. It is interesting, so you guys can see what my monitor looks like. This is how I know that the live stream is working. This is coming. This is not from my camera. This is from YouTube. So I see this straight off of YouTube, and this is my chat. And I did show this a couple weeks ago when that person was pretending that they were posting but weren't really. and they kept saying I was deleting stuff or ignoring them, and we would show this chat. So some of you saw that. But this is where, when I say I've got 24 people, this is where I'm pulling the number from. And sometimes it matches what you guys has, and sometimes it doesn't. And you guys don't match each other, so it's all over the place. And then the chat rate tells me how much you guys are talking currently, which is interesting. Now we get up to like 5s sometimes. And in the old days, we would be really lucky to hit a 2, so that's good. This is when I say we've had like 200 views, this is where that number comes from. And this number is actually surprisingly important. The average view duration gives a really good indicator of how well the show is being received, kind of. It's how long people actually stay and watch. So, and obviously the number is always much smaller than you would think. But back to the $1,000. So my apartment from 3 years ago, which is a nice apartment. Okay, it's not the best, but it's nice and it's always in demand. I don't care. It could be terrible. It's always in demand, right? It doesn't stay on the market more than, say, a week. People snatch it up because it's good space, good location, incredibly safe, walking to all kinds of public transportation in every direction. It's fantastic. 2-bedroom, 1 bath. It's a really well situated place. That place was $180 3 years ago. It's $180 today, right? Where in the world has an apartment in that much demand hovered at $180 without changing over 3 years? That's a really good sign from that the real estate prices are not going up. Same thing we've seen on in property purchases. If anything, rates have gone down. Things have not picked up. So places that have been claiming that they were, everyone wants to buy our place, blah, blah, blah. We got that lady on the beach who's always like, my place is in so much demand. She hasn't had a single viewer that anyone knows about in something like 8 years now. Right, so the whole, like people bluffing that their properties are worth a lot of money is really wearing thin, because people are like, if it was worth a lot of money and you don't want to be here, why didn't it sell? Right, and you've had these ads up. Why are all the for sale signs faded away? Why can't I even read the phone numbers to call anymore? Why are half the people who are the agents listed on these things out of business or not alive anymore? Right, these are and haven't been for a long time. These are big indicators that people have given up. There's nothing selling, and those of us who are actively on the market, the prices we're getting are lower than ever. And so from a buying and a renting perspective, at least in some areas of the country, is staying super competitive. And what we know from San Juan del Sur is that it's the hardest hit. Its prices should be down the most. It's still the most expensive, but it's closer to the rest of us now, we assume. Everyone always going to claim more, but it's the only thing that is really going to put you in some kind of risk, as long as you're getting all the right prices, is your groceries. That is the surprise killer for anybody, just in general. But if you're watching it, the ability to keep it down is still there. If you're eating Nicaraguan food instead of imported food, it remains very close prices. What does retirement look like for Nicaraguans? So they have some sort of social security or pensions? Yes. I don't have a lot of details about it, but I do know that there is a pension program. It's not great, but whose retirement is great, right? Not many. Probably Switzerland, but Norway for sure. But you see a lot of Nicaraguans retiring, and they definitely have Social Security. That was the big topic a decade ago when people were upset that there was a proposed, or there was a change to the Social Security, and the pensioners were like mobilized and were like, no. And then, they rolled back on that. We're like, okay, no, we can't. We have to increase it as we've been planning, or what I don't know what the exact change was, but it was a non-positive change that they were pretty upset about. And twice a month they block off a road here to give out the Social Security checks. I don't know why they do that, but it's very visible, and they advertise any changes to it or in the regular news outlets. So we're very aware of it, and there's a large retirement population here. Nicaragua pushes for what we would consider early retirement. They want people out of the workforce and this is relatively logical, right? This is a country that has to deal with a large unemployment crisis, and one of the ways that they do that is by encouraging the entire market to retire earlier. And so the design is pushing students to stay in university longer, and that's, I'll say, working from a goal perspective of keeping people out of the workforce. What you see is a country that's a little bit more lax about when you start kindergarten or whatever the first grade is, and very lax about when you're going to finish. And so it's not uncommon to see a high school senior graduating who's 20 or even 21 years old. That's completely normal. Not starting university until you're 22, completely okay. Graduating at 27 might be on the old side, but not seen as a problem. Not like, oh, you didn't do the, like everyone had, like, oh, you had to help support your family, you had to watch little kids, you just didn't have time to put it, a lot of things, right? So they've stretched out the high school and university ages, which keeps those people out of the main workforce. Yeah, you'll see those people sometimes working as waiters, working as models, whatever, but not the real jobs, not the ones that are really bringing in the money. They're kind of doing side jobs or whatever, mostly during those ages, clearly not everyone. And but generally delaying entrance into the workforce, and then encouraging encouraging education so that you have people who are ready to work when they finally do hit the workforce, say at 26. So instead of Americans who tend to hit it at like 24. So there's two fewer years to keep those people employed. And then when they hit the workforce, they have a little bit more education, they're ready to do it, and they work really hard. And then, and in the US, they're not really allowed to say this, but the reality is that there is a loss of productivity as you get older, right? I'm at an age where I'm not as productive as I was when I was younger. Right? Your prime work years are in those late 20s and early 30s. You're doing longer hours, you're able to put more in, you're more creative. Now, yeah, you learn things and you get better, and there's things that I bring to the table for my teams now, but I'm much more useful as a mentor and I'm much less productive, whereas they're more productive but less mentoring, right? That shift happens, but it doesn't take too long before it starts to become I'm in the way. Right, and if they could get rid of me and give my job to someone else with more energy, more would get done. Right, that's the nature of things, and each person is different. But in the U.S., we're creating a situation where people need to work longer, and we're creating a larger workforce by shifting kindergarten down a year. We're moving university so that people do university while they're in high school. So instead of Nicaragua, which is pushing university to be 22 years old when you start, America is pushing it to be 16 when you start, 15 when you start. And Nicaragua is trying to get university up to being a 5-year thing. The U.S. is trying to get it down to a 3-year thing or whatever. And so many Americans are entering the workforce sooner, but not as soon as if they got rid of the university system. They could speed it up a lot if that's really what their goal was. They're inching it down, and Nicaragua's inching it up because they have different needs. But in the same way, the U.S. is extending those later years because they are trying to avoid paying the Social Security. Nicaragua is happy to pay the Social Security and have younger people who are more ambitious go out and start working, and especially in manual labor, right? So if plumbers are hitting their late 40s, they would like to get them into retirement and get someone coming out of trade school at 23, 24, and get them out there working as a plumber and be a little bit more energy, a little bit less likely to blow out their knees, and have that, say, 50-year-old, someone my age, right, is more valuable in many cases, maybe occasionally mentoring and more likely to watch the grandkids, provide value at home, maybe still be involved and do projects, but not go and take a job out of the workforce because there aren't enough jobs to go around. So you have to kind of concentrate the jobs with the group of people most likely to be productive. And so they focus really heavily on providing a lot of Social Security type pensions in order to encourage this dispersion in the populace. It's a standard economic maneuver to try to handle this type of economic condition that the country has. And so, a healthy way to handle it is get people into retirement, right? Wow. What's the worst thing that can happen? Early retirement. Not too many people are like, darn, that's so awful. No, they're like, well, I would have worked longer, I would have preferred, but as a fallback, retiring early is hardly the worst thing. Especially as you can then go out and start a pulperia. Like, you're not barred from doing things, right? So Marcella's mother is a great example, right? She worked all when she was younger. Now she's over 50. She has retired from normal things. She used to work in Guatemala. She retired from normal life. Now she went out, opened a panaderia, and works really hard and runs a panaderia, and has established a business that now employs her other daughter, employs some of the nieces and nephews, and has a potential to be this ongoing thing for the family, right? And so that's fantastic. She turned into an entrepreneur using that time. And she did it partially with investment money from the U.S. because they have family in the U.S. that they were willing to help her mother out, because her mother was the ambitious one, the responsible one of the kids. And so that's where some of the money went. And now they have their own business, right? And so they're doing stuff and supporting their community and helping to keep a neighborhood safe and like all this great stuff. And that early retirement, right, may not have been the impetus, but it certainly contributed to the culture that allowed that to happen and the reality that allowed that to happen. And so when you see that across the board, you have a lot of families who are like, oh, I'm 22, I've got little kids, I would go to work and I'd be really productive, but who's going to watch these kids? Well, my parents have now retired because they're in their, they've hit 50. And so great, they'll watch my kids just like their parents watched me. And now I'm going to go work and pay the bills. And they're available because they got early retirement. That's a really effective means of solving some of those societal issues and also really, really significantly strengthening family bonds in the United States. We end up with, if you start sending grandparents to the office, and those ages in Nicaragua would be great grandparents, still going to the office to some degree, you have this, kids don't get to know their grandparents and great grandparents because they're busy all the time. When I was 5, my grandmother retired. I believe she retired when I was 5. And she moved down the street from me. And a lot of Americans have that experience because they grow up near their family, but I didn't grow up near my family. She moved because she retired so that she could be near me, being the only grandchild. She didn't know how annoying I would be as older. She may have regretted it, but she was hoping for the best and moved down the street. And so I grew up with my grandmother right down the street, and she didn't work because she retired when I was 5. So I remember being like 3 or 4 and going to visit her in Ohio when she was still working, and I never saw her that much. And then suddenly she moved and didn't work. And I had a grandmother that I was with all the time. Anytime my parents were busy, I'll just go down to grandmother's house, right? She was 3 houses down and in the country, very, very safe. So even at like 8 years old, I could walk down to her house. And a lot of times my grandmother would be like, send them down for the night, right? And I could just go down and spend the night at my grandmother's. I had my own room there. And when I wanted to have model trains as a kid, my grandmother gave me a huge portion of her basement to be my model railroad room, which I kind of forget that was my grandmother's basement. Like, obviously I know that's where it was, but to think back on it now that I had this other home that was there is really a surprise. It's amazing for me to think that was how that was. And she had all this space for me. And, I think as a kid, it was like, oh, am I allowed to go here? Am I allowed to do this? And the reality is that house, all that stuff existed just for me. She moved there to be near me. And of course, near my dad, because she only had 2 kids, right? And she only had 1 grandkid. So it made sense. I wasn't the only family there, but I'm why she was there. And I just want to say the amount of delay. I'm going to switch over real quick. This is how delayed we are. We're still on the pictures of that golden place in Chinandega is what's coming up on the monitor right now. That's, you can see the delay between the twinsies, but that's how far behind that gets. That was easily an hour ago. Just, wow. I'm going to refresh so it catches up. But that was a really important part of my family life. If my grandmother had to have worked until she was 70, 72, I would have lost all that childhood with my grandmother. And then she would have been too old and she'd have been like, oh, I can't move to New York. As it was, I think she moved out when she was like, I could probably do this. She was probably 65, actually. I was 5, so she was 65 when she moved out. She was spry. She was able to come out and do things. She ended up, dating. Like, I remember my grandmother still dating, right? She wasn't that old. And so because my grandfather had died before I was born, right? So he'd been gone a long time. Although it's funny, to me, grandpa died like in the murky past, right? Like so long before. But when I remember my grandmother dating, I was probably in the 12 years old range. The reality is she had only been single for like 20 years, but it felt like 50, right? But so that structure, they're leveraging this economic need and creating a family structure that's incredibly powerful here, where these multi-generational families stay in close contact and are helping each other because of that early retirement, or enabled by that early retirement, things that people don't really think about too much. Janet says, oh, they have to block off that road. Early in the day, there are a lot of people waiting, and the sides of the roads are full of people selling products to the retired people. Okay. D. Gilbert says, also, Scott, maybe this is a more personal question for just you, but how do you get your taxes from Nicaragua? I'm going to have to do mine. How do you do your taxes from Nicaragua? I'm like, Nicaragua doesn't pay me taxes. That sounds great. I'm going to have to do mine while I'm down there, but all my W-2s will be mailed in the States. So I get nothing mailed. That's the first thing. So I have the advantage that absolutely everything's digital. That's the first piece. But if I'm not going to do everything digital, my accountant is in Texas. I honestly don't know what part of Texas she's in. I know where my mailing address is in Texas, but she's not there. But anything that's like a W-2, I've sent directly to my accountant and have her handle all of that. So I've never seen my W-2s. I never deal with any of that stuff. If I have them, like I'll see them digital. I just email it to her. And she handles absolutely everything, including mailing the taxes and filing. But it's filed electronically. It doesn't matter where she is. But there is no aspect of my taxes that has a physical component to where the mail or a signature or anything like that is necessary. I do have to say I did have a huge blunder on my taxes and screwed it up big time, and had a pending fine of just over $500,000. And for that, my wife had to fly to the United States and put the papers in the mail personally. And as you can imagine, I also had to write a very big check to my lawyers. But that's how we handle it. My accountant handles it all. Dale says, my friend gets 3,000 cord a month in pension, presumably from her deceased husband. Haven't asked, so it could be hers as she's over 45. And 300 cord is like $80 or maybe 90. So it's 80. So it's very, very little, right? Their hope is that at that age, either you have something saved up, you own a house, you're living with family, right? And you're only using it as an additional component and not everything. Jan says, and you have had the kind of job, and you have to have the kind of job that pays into INS, which is paying income tax, to get retirement. Same as in the U.S., you have to have something that pays into Social Security, so it works very similarly. Don Timoteo, when you are older, you know what is going to be a waste of time and skip it. Xpizzazz is here 2 hours late watching the ads. Dale says, the culture here of kids being able to play in the street and go to the local shop on their own is one of my favorite things. Reminds me of when I was young and we'd play with the neighbors until dark. I love that. But the first that we ever experienced that in real life was well, I mean, when I was a kid, I experienced it. My wife experienced it, but with our kids, we lived in Texas, and you would never let your kids go outside alone. Like, oh my gosh, no. Even in super safe suburbs of Dallas, and we moved to the mountains of Spain, and our kids were tiny, absolutely tiny. So it was my eldest would have been 6. They were 6 and 3 when we moved. I think they were 6 and 3, and Luciana turned 4 really quickly while we were there. It was early on in living in Spain. And at those ages, and not speaking any Spanish, they were so social and so excited to be in a place they had, because we grew up in Texas, they were never around kids, never had a chance to be around kids. And except their family. And like our neighborhood had 0 kids. It was just a thing they had never had. And in Spain, the neighborhood kids would just come get them. They would just pop in and be like, hey, we're going to go out and do stuff in the street. And my kids would just take off. We would just let them go. At 4 and 6 years old, the two of them together, we would, not alone, but we would let them go together, and they didn't have a cell phone or anything. And they would just go with neighborhood kids. And one time they ended up in school, right? Like the kids are like, come to our school. And they went and they were doing some like activity. So they went and did this activity at the school. And you would hear them, because my daughters are Liesel and Luciana. And you would hear the Spanish kids come down the street. Liesel, Luciana. And they would go out to hang out with them. And it was just the sweetest thing and just the coolest memory that they would regularly go out with this gang of little like 5 to 9 year old Spanish kids and play, and we have no idea where they went. They went and found playgrounds, they went to school, they would just wander the streets. And my kids don't really remember it. Every so often they'll have a little like, oh yeah, there was that thing. But what a weird thing. But it was so big that they and our kids were so social, like, oh, these kids are cool, let's just go. And they didn't care about the language barrier or anything. And now, of course, they're like, kids? I don't want to hang out with kids. What are you talking about? But they would do that. And when we lived in Panama, we lived in a high-rise. There were no kids and never saw a kid, like, ever. So that didn't have an opportunity. When we lived in Nicaragua the first time, we saw a little bit of kids, but it didn't really give a good opportunity. When we lived in Italy, same thing. Neighborhood kids would come get them. They would go hang out. That was later. When we lived in Greece, there were no kids at all. It's amazing how much, like, just the different places we lived, we went entire countries that we lived in that my kids, like, never interacted with a kid. And then we would go to the next place. When we moved in Romania, they must have had 15 friends that would just come over to the house, and they would all hang out and go play. And a whole bunch of their friends from back then are still on my Instagram, and I know like what they're doing in life and where they've gone and stuff. And so we knew them really well. We still have contact with those kids, especially. Romania was by far the most connected of all the places that we ever were. But when there were those opportunities, and someone mentioned today, like, your kids don't socialize there in Nicaragua, and I'm like, well, first of all, my kids don't really socialize, like, not really a thing, and they're not looking to hang out with other kids. It's really not something that they're interested in. It's yeah, here's the Hangry1214 mentioned it on the thing today. When you say the numbers of kids that you know that are the same age as your kids is 0, are you referring to expat kids or also the Nika kids? Your kids don't integrate with the local kids? My kids don't integrate with kids, period. But they do hang out with Nicaraguan adults, and they speak Spanish, right? They'll go out and speak to adults without a problem. But they just have no interest, and they have nothing shared of interest with local kids, or in reality, kids in the U.S. either. They didn't have American friends. My eldest best friend is from Bolivia, right? Now, they met when not neighbors in in Texas, and have remained in touch. But it's very, it's just playing with the neighborhood kids is not a thing that they had. It's not a thing that I had either. I didn't have neighborhood kids. I was a lot more social than my kids and got none of the interactions. They have each other, right? The entire time I've been on this live stream, they're across the hall, hanging out together, being super social, playing video games and talking, and they're just so social, but they're social with each other, and they're super social with me, right? So once I'm done with here, I will go hang out with them for the evening, and we'll just camp out together and watch a show or play a video game or just sit and talk for hours and hours and hours. They'll hang out with other adults, no problems. They have their cousins to hang out with. They get so much social time, more than they want. That we'll be like, let's do something fun, and they'll be like, you know what? I need some alone time. Like, I just want to go to my room and read, or just want to go watch a movie or something. And so they're not seeking more social time. And they'll hang out. They have direct access to my dad, and my wife is home a lot of the day. Not as much as they would like, but like, Liesel and my wife were stuck together for like 6 continuous hours today. Had to do shopping, had to go to the doctors, had to drive to Managua and back. Right, they get plenty of time. And we travel together, and so we get a lot more family time, and they spend a lot more time socializing with family. I didn't have that stuff. I didn't have neighbors. I didn't have cousins. Not until I was way too old. And by the time my cousins were old enough to be in any way interesting, like 7, 8 years old, I was an adult, right? My youngest, my oldest, the nearest cousin to me in age was 15 when I started my first company. And she and I are close enough that and we grew up states apart from each other, and we didn't have the internet or anything back then, and phones were super expensive. So it wasn't like we had any shared interest or any reason to hang out, except we got along. But I started my career when she was 6. And so I was busy with work and career and university and stuff. And she was a little kid. That was the closest family I had. I didn't have anything else. And so those are things I just didn't have, because I grew up on a farm, middle of nowhere, with no siblings, no family. But they've got siblings. They live in a city. They do interact with other kids more than they wish they would. So it's different in that way. But I did all that from. It is so cool to see the kids able to just play here and feel comfortable with them going out and just doing things. And it's just my kids don't want to go anywhere, so they're not doing that stuff. But they can. They feel comfortable doing it. Why couldn't it be a better time to become an expat from Xpizzazz? I think we're going to actually save that topic for a full video, because it's the old guard on here tonight. And we're actually quite a bit lower on people, unless it just picked up. It did not. And so actually, sorry, Xpizzazz, we were talking about wrapping it up maybe 20 minutes ago, and a couple extra people came on and a few things came up, but it's a really slow night. And I'm very tired from being sick over the weekend. I haven't really had a chance to catch up so much. And I was hoping to hang out with my kids. So I think we're going to pretty much wrap it up. I just want to say, Dale says, I see 4- and 5-year-old kids coming to the pulperia across the street to get milk and eggs all the time. That was my kids in Spain. And they still talk about it, that it was the first place we ever let them go shopping on their own. So my youngest remembers. She was 4. Well, we'd probably been there for a while. So she was probably 5, but had just turned 5. And we let her, in another country, in Spain, right, go to, with her sister who was 6, go to, no, she had just turned 4, and her sister was 6, so 6.5 and 4, and we let them go to, it wasn't a pulperia, but it was a little corner store. It was pretty close to a pulperia in Spain. And they would go shopping and they would get ice cream and frozen pizzas. And they would know exactly what to ask for in Spanish, which was, you know, 1 or 2 words. And they would have money. And we could see the pulperia from the balcony, just like here, you know, kids go to the pulperia, but you can see them from the window. We could see them from a balcony, and so it wasn't too crazy, but that was such a cool experience. And I do want to just real quickly, just from memory lane, when we lived in Romania, which was 2016, we spent some time doing a tour of the Balkans, and we were in Montenegro, which I love, Petrovac, Montenegro. And we were renting in a house really close to the beach, maybe 2 buildings off the beach. And it had this really neat like alley that came out the back and went right by a bar. And it was a very secure area, and we felt very safe. And this bar was really close to the house in such a way that if you left the house, you would have to go through the bar. Like you'd go right through the outside portion of the bar. And so we felt really comfortable leaving the kids alone there at 7 and 5. So my wife and I went to the bar, and it was the first time that we had gone to the bar and left the kids at home alone. And my kids still just barely remember that. And to my wife and I, like, we just happened. Like, I could take you back to that bar right now, without thinking. And he says, I bet I probably couldn't really. But it's such a cool memory. But being able to leave our kids alone in another country, right? Just, I think so many people are really surprised by that. That's how life often is. That so much of the world is safe and kids can be on their own. And oh, there it is. Hold on. I'm just gonna switch over. See if we can find it. This is Petrovac right here. Absolutely love this town so much. I want to go back so much. We were only there on a little short vacation. It was just a few days. But this was such an epic place to be. Oh, I loved it so much. So our house was one of the ones right through here. I feel like it was right about over here. Pretty sure it was on... All these places have changed just a little bit, of course. Oh, I remember this pizza place. That's still there. There's also... There's a tunnel over here, and I actually... walked through this tunnel, and where does it pop out? It pops out here, right? There's an underground tunnel that goes through all of this, and I just randomly am like, I'm going to go into it, and there's an underground tunnel, and I walked, and there was this construction thing going on over there. It was pretty wild. So obviously a lot of things have changed, but somewhere, we weren't waterfront, there was an alley. Oh, I bet this could be it. This looks like it. No, unless they've really renovated it. I don't think. Oh, it's one right next to it though. That was the style. No. Oh, that's cute. Anyway, one of the apartments, like right there on this little beach. Oh, the food was so good. Exploring town was fantastic. It was great. And such a cute little spot. Anyway. That was a little memory of a little town in Montenegro where my kids spent their first time ever being allowed to stay home alone. And with that, we're going to call it a night. Thank you so much, everybody. Give a thumbs up before you go, and watch another episode since we're wrapping up early. Even if you're not going to pay attention, just let it run in the background. Let's get those hours in. It really does help. But I really appreciate everyone, and